Right, I'm back. I'm going to talk about what it was like in the Maiteneke special school. When I started there, our head teacher, or principal as we were supposed to call him, was Mr. Simei, a very small man with funny looking legs, um, skinny. He wasn't a big broad man. And every time I spoke with him, he seemed to look at me with so much interest because I suppose there's one thing that I sort of believed from him is that he thought I was more intelligent than than what they think of me at home. So when I spoke to him, you obviously had to. You never spoke your native language in school. You had to speak in English. So when I spoke to him, obviously it was always in English. And when I'm using certain words, he would look at me very attentively and repeat some of the words that I'm saying. And, this one particular time, he appointed me to put together a group for ballroom dancing club. I don't remember really dancing. I'm not that kind of dancer. I do dance traditional dances, but I have never got to learn how to ballroom dance and things like that. Even when I've been out cruising, I have pretended I'm on the boat, but to actually dance for someone to look and say, wow, I still can't do it. But anyway, so I put together a group. And so I was feeding back to him, and I was telling him that because there were certain people that he wanted to see in there, and some of those people some of those kids that he wanted to see in the group, they didn't want to join in, but some of them they did. And so I was feeding back, and I said to him, some of the kids that you wanted to come into this ballroom club, I said some of them, they didn't want to, only some. And then he looked at me and he says, only some. I was like, why are you coping, repeating what I'm saying? So, but now I think, was he querying the fact that there was only some, or, and surprised that there was only some of them? Or was he actually, repeating for the fact that I used the word only some? So I did that. And so we put in this ballroom class. I can't remember who was there I think it was Mr. Smay himself who was trying to teach us how to ballroom dance. And then the next group I was to put together. And I suppose he was asking me to do these things because he maybe gave me the responsibility of prefect or something. But I don't actually remember the hierarchy of kids, that maybe there was a captain or a prefect the way we used to have in primary. But he used to give me an awful lot of responsibilities. And eventually he would include Diana. He would say, you and Diana do this, because we were friends. So he asked me to put together a group of kids for drama club. And he said, if you were in a secondary school, these are the kind of clubs that you would have. In primary school, you don't have these kind of clubs. All right, so we had a ballroom club, and we had a drama club. And in a drama club, I do remember actually doing some plays, and we actually performed in a community center. And I remember, I'm not quite sure, I think it was Mr. Smay who gave us the money and said, well, don't take pretend food in your play. You must show to be eating the real food. So I remember buying some beef, and I made beef stew and cooked some insima. And so I think I was the wife or something like that. And my husband was a miner and who was always coming home drunk. Oh, dear. And I was giving him, food after he's finished because he's drunk and he's demanding. I think it was basically, from what I remember, I think the play was to portray domestic violence in some households, and to say that wasn't a good thing. And so the play was about my husband, the miner, who would come in after work. He would go getting drunk. So you see him at the pub, and then he would come in, knock on the door, and I open for him. He's demanding, "Where's my food, woman? Have you been cooking? Or this house looks a mess. You're keeping it a hovel and having a go," and giving me a slap. And I would, quite rushing about and trying to please him and bring his food. And well, when I'm talking like that, it's a bit like my ordinary life, basically. Only it wasn't a husband doing that to me. It was my own, my grandmother or my mother. And so, although my mother didn't hit me, I have to be very clear about that. But she hit me once. She slapped me once. But every other time he was just calling me the idiot, the village idiot that would never amount to anything, and not having any kind of faith that I ever will. And making sure everybody knew that I was the village idiot that was very feral and would never be, anyone of any kind of civilized state. And basically not having me anywhere near, because she constantly said I stunk and I was very poor hygiene. So, I remember those a lot more than most of the whippings my grandma gave me. So anyway, this play that we did was about that. Was, I think, addressing domestic violence. Although Mr. Smith didn't actually say what you're going to play. These words I've given to each one of you. That you're going to play in the play. This is what it's about, and this is what I want you to think about. He didn't, and I actually didn't sort of address it. It looked just like ordinary life. That didn't matter, because that's how life goes. But it was years later, I thought, so that's what that teacher was trying to do, was to open our eyes to say, well, maybe for you kids, you will one day marry, maybe you end up marrying a miner, and some of them, this is how they behave. I don't know. But I think that's probably what he was trying to do, to open our eyes to that, or to say if you're in a household where this is happening. But then he didn't say, just in case you are affected from this is what you do, this is who you contact, this is what happens. It just, anything, that kind of emotional support of any kind, it just didn't seem to exist in my country. And if it did, obviously there are people who, like there are children who were loved in the way that a child is supposed to be loved, that didn't worry or fear to hug their kids, that didn't, that were proud of their kids. Even though they were making mistakes, it was still seen as a learning curve, and that bathed their kids, that showed them how to bathe properly, so that they didn't just run water over themselves, how to scrub and where to and how, and to keep clean. People like me, you just knew you had to wash, but how, you didn't know. I'm still learning how to wash now. I remember 5 years ago, I washed my sisters in Zimbabwe, where they live in a hot country, and they don't live the luxurious life, the so-called luxurious life that I'm leading here. I'm always under the shade. It's a cool country, so my skin is supposed to be the one that is looking clean and bright, but theirs did. And once, and they don't sit in a bath. They don't stand under a shower. They have water in a bucket to wash. And I remember once, I said to my sister, I don't want to go in that enclosure to bath on my own. I said, can you come and bring your water? We can bath together. And I watched her. This is the last born. I'm like the second born, but I could have really been the first born. I'm not sure, because I've never met my older sister. And I watched her and I thought, oh. So that is how you do it. And I remember, the same trip, I remember my stepmother taking me some water to bath. And I went in and I bathed the way I know how. And when she saw me out, she says, already? And I thought, well, what else is there to do? That's because I didn't learn to do it the way they do it. And when I washed that, and now I try to do that, and I think my skin has actually changed a bit. It looks much better. Things like that. So these other children, they were taught, how to do things. I wasn't, and I was growing up taking everything for granted. So if there was any kind of domestic violence in families, that is a way of life. And I'd actually accepted that, if a man was treating their wives like that, then it's the wife's fault that, they are not doing these things right, and giving hassle to the man for him to even have to raise the issue. So that is the conditioning again, And so we had this play, and so that was one of the clubs that I was sort of running in school. Although I wasn't learning much from those clubs, I wasn't. They weren't giving me the confidence. Maybe that's why he was giving me these responsibilities, so that I could gain my own confidence. But because there wasn't a specific teacher, because Mr. Smay was the only one. We didn't have another teacher. He had this special school. We were the only class, obviously, starting Form 1. So he only had one class, and he did everything with us. And I think it would have been better if we had more than one teacher, because I think sometimes in schools where, there's multiple classes of one grade and there's so many different teachers, not every one person behaves the same, or not every one person has had the same kind of experiences. So that's why when these children from villages have gone to boarding school, and they've started to learn different ways of being from those various kind of teachers. One teacher would treat them like this, one teacher would treat them like that, and the other teacher, and they will start learning a broader picture of what life is. And I just didn't seem to have a broader picture of what life is, because wherever I was, it was enclosed to that one person. And I had Mr. Smay there, and so we finished Form 1, and where I was running the ballroom class and the drama class, and then we also started the first aid class. Now the first aid class was different. The first aid club. The first aid club, we had to go to Nchanga Mine Hospital. We had to go to the Nchanga Mine Clinic to start with, and we had this person who used to teach us the various things about first aid. And we went there religiously, and it was during school hours, I think, whether it was every Wednesday, one particular day of the school, we would go there all day. And then we started, after we'd done it for so long, the rugby club used to choose. Well, they used to say, when there was a rugby game, and these kind of games, there wasn't many, like in the rugby club, there wasn't many local Zambian blacks. It was mainly white people and Asians and mixed race people. So it was like a game for expatriates and whites, and it's in terms of the hierarchy of humankind, it was for the elite. It was for the elite, the lighter skinned. Okay. So, they would say, oh, there's a game against such and such, and we want your good first aiders to come and be on the line, just in case, one gets hurt, and they quickly come in to do first aid. And I always used to get picked. And I think I was doing well until I think there was a game against some club in South Africa, and there were all these whites, and apartheid was still quite, raw in them days in South Africa. And I remember, where I sat in this box, and then when someone gets hurt, they go, and the one who is managing us says, "It's your turn, you go and see to him." And I ran in, and he had like twisted his ankle, his knee. And I was trying to, help him, and he sort of opened his eyes, and he saw me touching him. I hadn't connected at the fact that the reason why he snapped and grilled at me and chased me. I mean, he didn't run after me, but his vicious voice and face it was like a dog with its nailing teeth wanting to bite you. You definitely run a mile. Maybe it wasn't because of how I touched him. It was maybe because I was a black person, because I hadn't actually at that time done anything yet. Because when I came to touch him, I think initially when he opened his eyes, he was about to tell me that this is where the pain was. Because I sort of said, where do you feel the pain? And he looked at me to say, and he looked, and instead his facial expression changed. He looked angry and he just went, get out, get out, get out. And so I left. It was only years later that I'm thinking, I wonder what possessed him. And I'm thinking, maybe because I was a black person trying to help him and he wasn't expecting that. But, why didn't they tell them that in this club, your first aiders are not going to be the white people that you accept in your white clubs in South Africa. They're going to be black. So that was one of the clubs that I used to do in school. And, I was enjoying them. I was really enjoying them. I'm trying to think. There was one more club. There was two other clubs. And one of the clubs that I remember also very clearly was the cadet club. And I was, I so loved the cadet club. It was putting those uniforms and, the army uniforms and marching and going to the barracks and to learn how the soldiers do assault courses and this kind of thing. And I liked that. I loved that. It was some of the things that took my mind off. Oh, Lord, right. So now I'm going to go home to reality, But once I put that uniform and that beret on and I was like going, I was like, wow, I like this. I like this. Maybe I'm going to be a soldier. So that was one of the things. And I do remember within the cadets, I suppose the thing that we used to do, which was like an add-on club, was like a political debate club. And for that, as I say, we only had Mr. Simei, and I don't know where he was dreaming up these kind of clubs, because he didn't actually put us through what the political debate club was and what you're supposed to do. But one of the things he made for sure is we always attended seminars and meetings of some sort where there was a speaker, and it was about, listen to that speaker, and you come back and you have to explain and analyze them and say, this is what I think. Although he never said to you, or we never had the lessons about how to analyze the speeches. But we used to be able to go, and it was one of the things, because I really liked, because these kind of things, they didn't happen in ordinary people's lives. It happened in people with status. It happened in people with something to show for it. It happened in people, that had significance. So when you are in a meeting, in a seminar, in a committee of some sort, and there's those kind of meetings going, you are there. It was more or less you're mixing with certain politicians, well-known people that you can see on television. I suppose you could see anyone on television, but people that you hear on the news, minister such and such or councillor such and such is, or the mayor of such and such. You mixed with those kind of people, you are the political debate student. Yes. Oh, yeah. How are you finding it? You just fob your way through. It's very interesting, sir. It's very interesting. I wish one day I can learn to speak like that. Very good, very good. Keep up the good work. Yes. Yeah, and this particular day we had to go to Chidirabombwe, and it was at Chidirabombwe Secondary School where this conference was taking place, and there was other kids from other schools, but they were from proper secondary schools, and there myself, I think it was just me from Maiteneke. Yes, it was just me. And I was put in with the girls from Chikola Secondary. And it was only girls. This one said, oh, I live here in Chililawombwe. And after lunch, when they're going to do something where we are not allowed to be, you can come over to my house. But, me and my insecurities, it was like everybody else was broadening their minds. I was with these people, and all the time I'm worrying about how I'm presenting. I'm worrying about what I'm saying. Am I appear? These are town people for starters. I'm the fear of village person who's never going to amount to anything. So before it was my grandmother's do or die words constantly ringing in my head, but now it's my mother's embarrassment. You fear of thing, will never amount to anything, and my reactions, I suppose, have always been just keep quiet. So I would move around, and then when they overwhelm me, I would stop even looking to see whether anyone was doing something, I would be listening. So if someone was talking and was looking at me to try and respond, I wouldn't have seen them because my head would be down. And this house where we'd gone to this girl's house, it was such a lovely house. And this, the mother was there. And she was, oh, girls, come in the kitchen here, I'm cooking. And I'm thinking, am I even supposed to go in there? And they all sat, there was this dining table in the kitchen, it was like a kitchen diner. And she was putting cupcakes on the thing. She says, oh, you eat that, you eat those. I'm going to go and get you some Tarino, I think it was called, like an orange drink in the fridge. And she brought this Tarino and gave each one of us nice and cold Tarino, opened it. And she said, you enjoy that, and with the cupcakes. And I wasn't sure if I was allowed to actually even eat this cupcake. And I remember the other girl says, you don't like cupcakes? I said, I do. She says, well, that one is yours. I was like, all right. I had my permission then to say eat it, because now I see everybody's eating. So, all right, I can eat this now. But I was just thinking, this woman is going to say to me, you are smelling my kitchen down, get out. And if someone could give me a tablet to stop my mind, automatically going into that, I would take it. Probably even if someone said if you drank cyanide and you don't die, you get better, I'll probably drink it, because that's how desperate I am, and that's desperate I was to just be able to say something that is believable and for me to be accepted. And for me to just appear and to be with other people, and for them not to judge me about the kind of person I am, that I'm a bad person, I'm a smelly person, I'm a feral person, I'm a whore. These things, they flood my mind. And they were flooding my mind at that time on that day. And to a point where, another place where that happened to me is Diana eventually had a boyfriend. And this boyfriend was a mixed race boy. And of course, mixed race boys, people, excuse me, but they, their parents must have been well-off people, because, there was a very few white people who were not well-off. And they didn't go, from my knowledge at the time, they didn't go out with women who had no education. So they would have been with someone with an education, or their mothers with an education. So they are growing in a certain understanding and certain understanding of life and conduct, basically. The kind of understanding and conduct that I didn't know, I didn't have a crystal ball to see, and I hadn't experienced, but I knew it existed, and I knew that my way was my way that was shunned completely by everybody. And it was a beautiful house, and it belonged to him, and he was some kind of director of some company, and he came in and he looked like, something I'd seen associating with my mother. And my God, how am I going to be saying this is my friend and this is my friend's boyfriend and we're here to visit him? And he came in, oh, hi, Susan, because I was a Susan then. It seemed like I was welcome, and But obviously, go help yourself, do something. And I would sit in the same spot in the living room on that chair where they said, he pointed, "Do you take a seat?" So that's where I would sit. I wouldn't move. And, he was off messing around with Diana or whatever, whether it was like, "Hey, wow, long time no see" type thing. They had a kiss and cuddle, which I'm assuming that's what was happening, because she came out buttoning herself and smiling as she used to walk. I could picture her now. She's just this little short woman that was so polished, and the way she walked, like she was kicking her legs, and she comes in and she says, "You're still sitting there. Have you had anything to eat?" And I said, "Oh no, how would I in someone's house, And he came in and he sort of grabbed and started messing around with her, and I just shut down. And I don't actually remember anything else that happened on that visit. Although the boys kept saying, "What's the matter with her?" And I think he thought I wasn't happy because Diana was messing around with her boyfriend. The kind of normal things normal people would think, that's why she's behaving like this. It was because I was just so embarrassed. All these barking things in my head, you whore and you smelly and you fero, and they were just, flooding my head, and I just wanted to cowl and hide behind the settee. So, and I couldn't, I thought to myself, and I can't actually go back because, to be honest, I didn't think I knew my way back, because I was in a part of the town where I'd never been, and I never thought I'd ever be. I can't remember. I think it was in town, but it was in the houses. It was like a gated community. So, yes, those are the kind of things. And I will tell you more about the cadets, at some point. But, I lost myself in those clubs, but the ballroom club didn't seem to take off as well as the drama, the first aid, and the cadets. Those I really enjoyed, but I never pushed myself to get myself involved with the political drama, political debate club, because again, I was starting to find or to see life on a different way, but because of the lack of confidence, I never sort of thought, so this is how it happens. It was just like, oh, this is a world that I'm not supposed to belong, because this is what I am, and shameful that I'm even thinking I could be here. And I'm sure that that girl's mother, when she was in the kitchen making cupcakes and giving us tarino, she wasn't thinking, this one that is not welcome. She's a smelly one, or she's a feral one. It was just like, oh, my daughter has come in for lunch with her friends from this club, so I'm gonna make sure they have something to eat, because, oh, of course, I realize now that's what mothers do, but I never seen that in my house. And how was I supposed to make of it in somebody else's house? I know, maybe if I had a few more examples, I'd have thought, oh, that is actually just how it goes. It's okay. Because that life is for them, and I don't know how to fit in there. But always, I don't think it's for me, because I'm not deserving of it. Because it's a shame. I should be embarrassed of myself to even think that I could mix and mingle and be part of that. All right, it's 29 minutes. Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. Tara.